Here on the Raider Nation, it's your boy Dub Raider. Alongside me, is Chris from Protect the Shield podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Raider Nation's Weekly Wire, where we give you the rundown of the NFL news, Raider news, and Raider Nation news. Again, welcome, Chris. Thanks for being with us again this week. How you doing, my brother?
Man, I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Always, you know how I feel, man. I always love taking out this time, man, to talk ball with you, man. So wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Yeah, man. First of all, I'd like to thank you for including me yesterday in your live. For the Geno Smith contract. It was a lot of fun, getting to interact with the chat. Salute to all the chat, the Shield Squad.
Shield Squad, baby.
Shield Squad. There they go. It was a lot of fun. All our brothers and all the supporters that were on there early, because it was just kind of like it was really quick. Just got on there, say, hey, we got this news, let's do it, and it was a lot of fun. So thank you for including me on that yesterday.
Yeah.
As far as today, we're going to cover our usual Chris's Weekly Word. We're going to be talking about, originally was the Geno Smith contract watch, because we didn't know where we stood with him, but obviously as of yesterday, we now have news. We're also going to be talking about the signing of linebacker Devin White to a 1-year deal, I believe. And then, is Hunter Renfrow back, or is he going to come back? We'll talk about that as well. And one of my new favorite topics, the War Room's mock draft. They've been having mock drafts for the past, 3 weeks, correct?
Yeah, we're 3 weeks in. 3 weeks in.
And it's let me tell you, it's been informative and entertaining. It's amazing. If you guys haven't checked it out, go to Chris's YouTube page, check out the War Room. They have a mock draft every Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. You will not be disappointed. So, Chris, let's get started with Chris's Weekly Word. Again, this is the portion where Chris informs us on news that's going on in the NFL world, in the Raider Nation, and he gives us a brief description and his point of view on what's happening.
Yeah.
So the first one, like I mentioned, Geno's contract.
Yep.
We found out yesterday. What's the word on that?
Yeah, so we finally, it finally happened. A lot of us were, kind of wondering, when it was gonna come about. We're kind of wondering what the details were going to be. So we did see that, essentially it's a 2-year extension, for $85.5 million, and he's already on the books for 1 year. So it's really a 3-year extension, or a 3-year contract that we have for him. So it's a contract that's going to kind of put him in the middle of the pack as far as the amount goes, per year and things like that, which me personally, I'm okay with. When I think of Geno, he is a middle of the pack type of quarterback, so I don't think that he's being overpaid or necessarily underpaid. Just initial look at the contract, I'm okay with it. So as long as we do what we have to do to get him the right pieces around him, to get him protection and weapons, because he is going to need that when he had his best years, which were this last couple years in Seattle. He had weapons. He had 3 good receivers. He had 2 good running backs. So he had a pretty good defense on the other side of the ball. So for him to be able to do what he continue to do what he was doing over the last few years, we got to put the right pieces around him.
Gotcha. So let me ask you this, Chris, being that you said that we didn't overpay or underpay, is the amount worth his value based on all the speculation of him, being old and, already past his prime? Are we still good with that amount? Because again, there's always the pros and the cons to any player. There's always, anything could happen during the season. Just like what would happen to Aaron Rodgers. Came out there, first game gone.
Right.
As far as all of that, you still think it's fair, right, for what we paid for?
Yeah, I think it's fair because I think he's he's playing at his best that he's ever played. So it's not like he's taking a step back. Like you'll see some quarterbacks that peak early, and then they'll start being on a decline, and usually the Raiders, that's usually when we catch people on their decline.
Oh yeah, and pay them a lot of money.
Exactly. So we don't ever get guys kind of at the top of their game. I think Geno just kind of developed late. Maybe not necessarily developed. I mean, he finally got an opportunity that was good for him. So he's kind of playing some of his best ball now. So I think it's worth the risk. Me personally, I'll always go and say, I still would have rather had, someone like a like a Russell Wilson for half of the ticket. But
is Russell Wilson younger or older?
I think he might be younger,
right?
I'm not sure. Or they're probably
about average.
Actually, no. I think he's a couple years older.
Oh, okay.
I think Russ is a couple years older. So, but I still think that Russ, for what we need him for, I think he could have got the job done for half the price. But that's water under the bridge at this point. But I think that the main thing is Pete trusts Geno. He understands how he is as a leader. He trusts him. So, and I trust Pete. So, I'm going to go ahead and rock with this. Again, I wasn't super excited, but I'm going to rock with Geno and see what happens.
Yeah, and then obviously there's history here because Pete Carroll coached them at Seattle. So, that goes to show that he does have a confidence in Geno. So, in that aspect, I definitely do understand. The only thing that kind of concerns me is that Geno is no longer a bridge quarterback, right? Because now it's a long-term contract.
He's our guy.
So now we're basically, that's it. We're done,
Yeah. I mean, so, because I guess, and again, I didn't look at the contract like it's, super close. Some people were saying there's an out after 2 years. Even so, I think that Pete brought him in to be the guy, like I don't, of course he's all about competition, but I think the total plan is, hey, we're going to bring in Geno and we're going to give Geno, we're going to protect him and we're going to give him weapons to be successful, because one thing about Pete that I do like about him, he's not a guy that's like, hey, bring in this quarterback and we're going to put everything on his back and you go win the game for us. That's not his philosophy. And I like that. Because Geno's not that type of guy. Geno's not a Mahomes where you're just going to be like, hey, go win this for us. We're going to be like, hey, we're going to build a team around you. And Geno, you got to do what you do to get us there. And
do your part.
Yeah, do your part. So we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, well, let's based on Pete Carroll's history, he usually makes pretty good choices.
Yeah.
He's been wrong very few times. So, let's hope that this is one of the times that he's right with this extension and with Geno Smith.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else you want to add about Geno?
No, man. It's just Raider Nation. At the end of the day, we're gonna have to give him a shot, man. We're gonna have to give him a shot. I know there's people that think that AOC can beat him out. I mean, that's not gonna happen. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah,
I don't want to draft a quarterback early. I know I stressed that on my show yesterday. I do not want to draft a quarterback early. When you give this type of pay increase, like a 65, 68% pay increase to a quarterback, you do not pay him that increase just to use your first round pick on something that's not going to benefit him immediately. So we'll see.
Correct. Yeah, it is what it is, and now he is our guy. So Geno, let's do this, my brother.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
Breaking news as we welcome you to NFL Live out of Las Vegas. Adam Schefter, what's going on?
All right, Laura, the Las Vegas Raiders have signed Geno Smith to a 2-year contract extension, tying him to the Las Vegas Raiders through the 2027 season. That's the next 3 seasons, which means he and his former Seahawks head coach, Pete Carroll, are tied together in Las Vegas. The Raiders have turned over their franchise to Pete Carroll and Geno Smith at quarterback. The two sides essentially been working on this deal since the Raiders acquired Smith in a trade from the Raiders. There was always the expectation that they would get this worked out. They continued conversations at the owners' meetings, reached the agreement today, and Geno Smith is now tied to Las Vegas for the next 3 years.
Next topic here is the signing of linebacker Devin White to, I think it's a 1-year contract.
Yep, 1-year deal.
What do you got on him, Chris?
Yeah, so I like the signing. For one, we signed him for like 1.1 million. That is barely anything. We literally have guys on special teams, guys that are rookies that are making just $50,000 less than that. So, but Devin has the potential to be a starting linebacker for us. He's was a captain of a NFL Super Bowl winning team. He was a 4-year captain with the Bucs. A lot of his best years, of course, were, a while back when he was with the Bucs. But just like I try to tell, some of my peers and some of my people, when you get someone that can play, that already has proven it at the professional level, that you can be an all-pro. Like, being an all-pro is the best of the best at that level. Now, Granted, if it was 1 year, 2, whatever, you got a guy that has shown he has the ability to play at that level. Why not, bring him in? Because sometimes it's just, people need a change of location. They gotta be in the right situation. I think, what's his name? Spillane is a great example of that. Spillane was decent for the Steelers, but he came here, had a change of scenery, and he really thrived with us. And that just what happens, or it can go the other way. A guy who thrives somewhere, goes somewhere else, and like Nnamdi Asomugha. Yeah. Nnamdi was great with us. He went to the Eagles. It just wasn't a good situation for him. He looked like he never played ball before. So, I'm curious to see what we can do with Devin. It is a very low risk situation. The guy is very fast. The guy's a 4.4 speed guy. He's very athletic. I mean, he can move. He's great at rushing the quarterback. He can get sacks. He can make splash plays. For $1.1 million, you can't beat it. If it doesn't work, what's the worst thing that happens? We cut him. No harm, no foul.
And how long has he been in the league?
I think he's been in the league since I want to say about
5 years, right?
Yeah, 'cause I think he came in that 2019 draft. I think that was the draft we got Cleveland Farrell. Cause a lot of people wanted Devin,
And then didn't he want to come to the Raiders, right?
Yeah, because he made a post about, hey, the Raiders are gonna regret passing up on me, so I can't believe we didn't pick him up. That year I think I wanted Josh Allen, the defensive end linebacker from I think the Jaguars ended up getting him, but yeah, that's what I wanted. But if we didn't get him, I wanted Devin. So he's a baller. He's a baller. He just got to put it all together. He's shown he can do it. We just got and I think a coach like Pete, who's a defensive minded guy, could potentially get that out of him.
And then there's also a connection with Spytek, correct? Because Spytek was on staff when he got drafted.
Yeah. Yep. Spytek was there, and again, it's like Spytek was there. He trusts him. Tom Brady was on that team.
That's
so
right.
He knows he was a co-captain with them.
That's right.
So it's like, it's worth a shot. That's all I'm saying. It's worth a shot. I think that, we don't have much to lose. We don't have nothing really at linebacker that's, if we can get Devin White and Roberts to play at their potential, we could all of a sudden have a great linebacker room where, just a few weeks ago, it was probably the worst room in the NFL.
Yeah, it's getting better little by little.
Yep.
Little by little. All right. Next, our old friend, Hunter Renfrow, came for a visit. What are your thoughts on the Raiders potentially picking him up?
I like Renfrow as he always seemed like he was a good guy. He seemed like he worked hard. I do think kind of like, Renfrow's run is probably a little over. Renfrow had, some concussions. Had a tough time with us towards the end. I know a lot of people want to blame Josh McDaniels, but Renfrow, he started fumbling a lot. He had some uncharacteristic drops, and just the way that Hunter plays. He's not going to like really outrun no one, so he has to kind of do some of that dirty work in the middle. So he's going to take big hits. He's not a big guy, so taking big hits is going to always be part of his game because he's going to have to go in the middle and take those. So, I don't think he's a good fit. If we did bring him in for, league minimum or something, I would say, hey, bring him in, let him compete, let him see what he has. Maybe there's still some juice so we can squeeze out of him. Pause, but I wasn't too thrilled or too excited about a possibility of reuniting with Renfrow, but salute to him.
Yeah, definitely. I always liked the kid because he was unconventional.
Yeah, he was.
He wasn't what was expected of a wide receiver. You see him and he looks like a substitute teacher.
Right.
It didn't fit the mold.
Right.
But when he hit the field,
oh yeah, he balled.
Oh man, he was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you mentioned, towards the end of his career with us, he did have a lot of really hard hits, a lot of drop balls, and it could be that the scheme he was in wasn't built for him anymore. He wasn't considered, a weapon. He was just, a casualty of war, basically.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool to bring him back just for the nostalgia aspect and for the possibility we could still, like you mentioned, we could still get a little out of third and Renfrow.
Yeah.
Because he did do a lot for us when he was here. And I think if it's a good price, we should bring him back at least to compete, and give us something. Something's better than nothing. So, if we do bring him in, great. If not, it was always great to have him in our team, and he left a lot of great memories.
He did. He did
back in the day. But yeah, Hunter, let's see what's up with you, my brother. Hopefully, you come back, help us out, and make this team strong again.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Now, my favorite topic of Chris's weekly word. The War Room's mock draft. The past 3 weeks, I believe you guys have been conducting. Are they independent mock drafts, and then you compare and contrast each other's and see who the winner is, or how does that work?
Yeah, so every Sunday, at least up until the draft actually happens, myself, the Severe Raider and 805 Raider, we all do a live mock draft. We all independently do one live, and we let the chat, grade us, and each individual pick, and then they'll grade the overall draft we have, and then they'll rank them. Who's the best each week. So we always have a lot of fun with it. Myself, Severe, and 805, we're all we're all super competitive, cause we're all good friends, man. Those are my brothers, and I literally talk to them every single day, pretty much all day. We talking ball and different things. So it's something that we really enjoy. We have fun with. We talk a lot of crap, and it's all rigged because I should be the number one person, but somehow I'm not. And this fellow named Severe is he is a 3-time champ right now, and he does not hesitate letting you know he's a 3-time champ.
What was he dressed up as was it last week? Yeah, last week, right?
Yeah.
Did he come onto camera?
Yeah. So last week he made a.
Oh man.
he made quite the arrival. You know, he came in with a little crown, and he was dressed
Fashionably late, though. Fashionably late.
Oh yeah, he's fashionable. He's always fashionably late because he's always talking to the IT programmers of that draft, because he always gets trades that none of us get. He gets these trades that only he gets. Like, he gets Travis Hunter. You know, he trades back and can still get Travis Hunter. Where if it was my draft or 805's draft, someone like Travis Hunter's going in the first or second pick. So, but only Severe gets that. Severe will get, you know, he'll trade back one pick, and then he'll get like 3 second-round picks or something. So it's crazy. But salute to Severe. If you're not cheating, you're not trying, baby.
There you go. That's what what was his name? Matt Millen said.
Oh yeah.
He ain't trying. Yeah, man, it's a lot of fun watching you guys go through these mock drafts. You know, I've never really tried one.
Yeah.
I think, at least in my perspective, it seems like it would probably confuse me and frustrate me more, because from my understanding, every mock draft you do, there's always a different outcome, even if you pick the same, correct?
Yes. So the mock draft, I mean, yeah, it's just, you know, the way that the algorithm and the AI is set up. You know, they kind of pick what they think teams would want, you know, based on their need, and you know, you can do different trades and stuff like that. So, you know, it's always a little different. So, you know, it's fun. You know, for me, you know, before this, I was never a big fan of them, because it tends to, like you say, it cause a lot of frustration, because it makes us fans start really like falling in love with certain players. And, you know, in our mind, we're thinking that the draft is really like this simulator, which it really isn't. You know, it's nothing like it. But, you know, we think that, you know, we're couch GMs, man. So, you know, we think it's something different. But you know, but it's fun to do, especially when you're competing with some other friends. And and the main reason that I enjoy it forces you to, not only me, but all fans, to kind of look into some of these prospects that we wouldn't usually look into, you know, because some people, you know, just know the top few names of the draft. But, you know, when you go through this exercise of the simulator, you know, you start looking at, hey, who are some of these guys that's on the board in the 5th round? Hey, who are some of these, you know, middle tier linebackers? And then it gets you to, hey, let me go look at some stuff on them. Let me go look at some highlights. Let me go look at, you know, full games of this person. So it helps you become a more informed fan, you know, if you want to go down that deep to the details. So it's pretty cool.
Well, I definitely think that the mock drafts and the actual draft do have one thing in common, which is unpredictability.
Absolutely.
You know, because, you know, the draft doesn't work like we think it's going to work all the time.
Exactly.
Obviously, the big names are usually picked correctly, you know, in the positions, but everything else, it's kind of random.
Yep.
You know, because you think, okay, this team needs a linebacker. You know, they're going to get this linebacker because he's the best.
Right.
But then they end up picking, you know, best player available. You know, and they kind of throws off, kind of like what happened to us last year with was it the Falcons, right?
Yeah, the Penix. Yep.
Yeah, the Penix pick. You know, we thought we were going to get him. All of a sudden, Falcons swooped them up, and we're like, Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
You know, so you know that definitely I see. Now let me ask you this, because obviously I know you know a lot of college ball, but I know there's some players on this list that you probably never heard of, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, so when it gets time to start picking those players, do you have time to go and research them at the time, or do you just pick based on their like scores or whatever they have?
Yeah. So, there's been a couple times where, you know, especially later in the drafts, it's like, man, I haven't had a chance to read up on a lot of these people that are available now. So honestly, I probably do what a lot of some NFL teams do. You know, you're picking based off of just potential. You might just be looking at measurables, like, hey, you know, in the 6th, 7th round, I might go take a chance on a 6'5" receiver that runs a 4.3. Yeah, now granted, he may not have that much production. You know, he may not have a lot of touchdowns, but you can't teach
Right.
6'5" receiver that runs a 4.3, you know. So sometimes you look at the measurables like, hey, you know, a right tackle that's 6'8" with long arms. Used to play basketball in college. You know, hey, I might consider taking a look at this guy, you know. So
right. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try one soon, I hope.
Yeah.
I just feel that after the first round, I'll be just lost because I really don't follow college ball that much or at all, really, other than USC.
Yeah.
So, you know, so and the only thing I really know about any college players is what I hear from the War Room.
Yeah.
You know, and whenever I watch your show, when I watch Cheeto shows, you know, that's how I learn of players, but I don't really, you know, dive into any college ball.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely gonna give it a try, and I think Nation, you should give it a try too, and let us know, you know, what your outcome is and what you think about it is.
Absolutely.
You know, because we'd like to know. I'd like to know personally. You know, that way it will give me, I guess, more confidence to try it. You know, and bring it up here and maybe show it to you guys and see how good or bad, you know, you guys and Chris would think I would do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it'd be fun, man. All right. Well, that concludes Chris's weekly word. Now we're going to move on to our next topic, which is Chip Kelly's offense. Mm-hmm. I've heard left and right, Chip Kelly's offense this, Chip Kelly's offense that, you know, it's good, it's this and that, you know, runs the ball, he does this, he does that. You know, I don't really understand the whole concept of the Chip Kelly offense. Can you describe it or explain it to us, Chris?
Yeah, so Chip Kelly really made his name originally in college, just because, you know, when you look at his offense, it was always known as being fast tempo. It was all about tempo. It was considered pretty much the fastest offense in the league. You know, he was known for, you know, snapping the ball, you know, within, you know, 15 to 20 seconds. So it was like he was on it. You know, it was quick. It was tough on defenses because, you know, defense have trouble making adjustments, and, you know, the defenses get worn out and things like that. So, you know, that they didn't, you know, really have a chance to make substitutions, and it really gave him a chance to kind of take control of the pace of the game. So that's kind of what, you know, he was always known for. You know, the concepts were pretty simple for the most part, you know, and again, it was just executed pretty quickly. And he, you know, he had times where he put up a lot of points, you know, because of that tempo. Right. So he was always known as a guy that, you know, got a lot of yards, put up a lot of points, spread the defense, you know, he'll spread his offense out. So the defense was, you know, in a, you know, vulnerable position and things like that. So, you know, so when you think about Chip Kelly, that's kind of what he's going to give you. You know, fast pace, spread out, you know, pretty efficient, and just move quickly.
And is it more run based, more pass based, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, so it's you know, it's both. You know, it is both. You know, for it to be as spread out as it is pretty balanced. You know, because a lot of inside runs, you know, outside zone runs, you know, things like that. But I mean, he always has a good running game for the most part. You know, if you watch, you know, the Ohio State Buckeyes, who just won a national championship, you know, they pounded the ball. You know, he made sure, you know, they had two of the best running backs in the nation. So, you know, they ran the ball well. He believes in that. He believes in, you know, his linemen, you know, blocking hard, you know, being able to, there's a lot of zone stuff. So they got to be able to move and get to the next level. So you will see, you know, a balance of both, you know, run and pass.
Now, when you mention a fast-paced offense, does that include like no huddles? Does it include trick plays? Does it include play action? You know?
Yeah, so definitely, you know, no huddle, you know, just the quarterback kind of doing his thing at the line. But yeah, it's just a quick tempo, man. You know, it's in a way it's kind of simplified because you got to kind of have it simplified to be able to do, you know, something like that. But yeah, it's a lot like no huddle and just get going. You know, hey, 15 seconds in, snap the ball, let's go.
Okay, well, basically that seems to be all like the good and positive aspects of the Chip Kelly offense. Do you see any negatives with the Chip Kelly offense and incorporated into our team the way it sits now?
Yeah, I think definitely. So if you don't have long extended drives, you know, because his stuff's so quick, you know, if it mess around and you go 3 and out, your defense is your defense didn't have a chance to really rest. You know, like say the defense just made a big stop. Yeah, good job. We're giving the ball back to the offense. The offense gets the ball and they're so quick. And then, you know, a minute or so later, you know, you're punting the ball, that offense comes back out. You know, the defense could get, can get fatigued a lot faster as well. So, you know, and that catches up, you know, in the fourth quarter. So,
so basically like our team this past year.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
that's actually what happened a lot of the time.
Yeah, like we got the ball and just punted it right back to him.
Yep.
Yeah,
and it just gave it right back.
Yeah. So yeah, because then when you look at it, because you know what's so important in the NFL, like you got to look at the time of possession.
Right.
You know, if you're not a team that holds on, and that's the thing when you're dealing with, you know, playing against a Mahomes, you know, you want to keep Mahomes on the sideline as much as you can.
Yes.
So, you know, I get the tempo and stuff like that, but you want to be able to take some time off the clock, you know, have a methodical drive to, you know, be able to, you know, move the ball down the field and keep, you know, whether it's, you know, Burrows or whoever the quarterback is that you're facing, you want him on the sideline, you know, watching next to the coach. You don't want him to have a whole bunch of reps on the field. So that could be a bad thing. And then people would say that, you know, they started kind of figuring Chip Kelly out, you know, in the NFL. Just kind of predictable at times. Because the thing with Chip Kelly, when he first got into the NFL, it started off great. He was moving, you know, he was getting it going. But then it was like once he kind of got figured out, things got kind of bad, and it got bad kind of quickly as well. So
yeah, but that's just like any player or any coach, you know, when they're new, you know, people they don't have film on him, they don't know him
exactly.
You know, so there's a lot of unpredictability. But once the film starts stacking up, they start seeing the patterns. They're like, okay, this is what he's going to potentially do.
Exactly.
You know, but he's not like Andy Reid, where you know he could switch it up from quarter to quarter, right? Or does he have that
because he's not going to have as much in his tool bag, or his tool bag is like an Andy Reid or so. You know, he's going to have his plays. He's going to have, you know, his concepts, and they're going to be efficient. You know, if plan A doesn't work, you know, there may be a plan B we can go to, but the thing is, it's hard to stop plan A. It is hard to stop. But if you mess around and can do it, then, you know, it's, you know, it could be tough on Chip to be able to kind of get out of that.
I see. So all in all, what do you think of the Chip Kelly offense with our team? Do you think we're going to succeed? Do you think, you know, based on our quarterbacks and our potential draft picks and, you know, filling up those holes in the offensive line, running back, wide receiver one, let's say if we get a middle tier team, you know, not an elite wide receiver one, but a good enough wide receiver one, a good enough running back or running back core, because is he a running back by committee, or is he just the workhorse running back? What does he run?
He probably would do not necessarily by committee, but he'll probably be, you know, wanting, you know, a good 1-2 punch.
Okay.
You know, a good 1-2 punch. Like he's not gonna run a running back to the ground. You know, he'll be able to, you know, if he can get a good 2-guy rotation, he'll rock with that.
Okay. So based on all those parameters being filled, on an average, not elite, on average, do you think the Chip Kelly offense is going to benefit us this upcoming season?
I mean, it will be better than last year, of course, which isn't saying much.
It will be better than last year.
Yeah, it's not saying much. You know, will I say he is an elite offensive mind? And will I say I was super excited when we signed him? I wasn't super excited. However, you know, he does have the potential. You know, if he can get things going, they can open up quickly. They can open up quickly, and we can be explosive pretty quickly. My biggest issue is with Chip isn't necessarily his schematic, you know, philosophy. It's more or less his personality. You know, just the way he manages players and his player relationships. I mean, some of his ex-players absolutely can't stand him. You know,
he's old school then. He's old school, like that tough love type of.
It's not even tough love. He's kind of disrespectful. Like
just an asshole.
Yeah, like tough love is different. Like I think like Belichick, you know, he and Coughlin, and you know they give tough love. Like Bill Cowher's tough love, but you know Chip Kelly is kind of like disrespectful to a point. You know, like he wanted one guy to cut off his dreads or something. Yeah, like little stuff like that, man. And you know, little stuff like that.
So would this be McDumbass 2.0?
See, I don't know, man, because I'm probably not the right one to ask, because I think McDaniels is a great offensive mind. So
no, I'm not arguing the fact that you know he's.
Oh, you mean personality wise?
Personality, right? Because we had heard a lot that he just tore the players down. He acted holier than thou, and you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could say it's probably going to be some similarities there. You know, because both of them, you know, Josh and Chip, you know, they want smart players. So they want guys to be able to think on the fly, to be able to be, you know, and if he doesn't get it, they're going to voice their opinion. They're going to stay on you. So, and me as a ex-player, you know, I never minded that. You know, I never minded a coach that stays on you and has expectations of you. But you know, I think like the condescending, you know, and again, you know, he may have changed. You know, he hasn't dealt with NFL players in a long time. So maybe he learned something. You know, Josh McDaniels said he learned from his first time around. Come to find out, we don't know if he really did or not, because there was still some issues.
But then McDaniels didn't. He never coached college, right?
No. So he was always, you know, in the NFL. I mean, for like majority of his career, yeah.
My assumption is obviously when kids come into to play college ball, obviously they're still kids. They're children.
Yeah.
You know, barely adults. So you have to treat them differently.
Yeah.
You know, you have to bring them up a certain way in order for them to adapt to the major change.
Yeah.
And my assumption is that the same thing occurs from college to the pros. You know, to the pros. Now you're dealing with men. You're dealing with professionals. You're dealing with individuals that are there to do a job. Mm-hmm. You know, so I'm hoping that time he had at Ohio State, you know, kind of like tweaked him a little to where now that he's back in the NFL, he has that adaptability and that I guess better communication skills and better interaction with the players, to where he doesn't come off like that. Because I did hear a lot of ex-players of his when he was in the pros earlier on in his career. They were talking smack about him, that they hated him, that he was a dick, and you know.
Yeah.
And that worries me.
Yeah.
You know, because that's always been a big downfall with us. You know, there's always that inner turmoil that we don't see, that we hear until it's too late.
Exactly.
When things have already gotten horribly bad.
Yep.
So, but so all in all, you feel that Chip Kelly's okay? It's
Yeah, I'm just taking the wait and see approach, and
Okay.
just kind of see what happens. I'm gonna give him a shot. I wasn't super excited when we got him, but he's here, and I'm gonna give him a shot.
All right. If real quick, if you had the opportunity to pick an offensive coordinator over Chip Kelly, who would you have picked?
I'm trying to think.
That was available.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who was available at the time.
It was slim pickings, right?
Yeah, it was slim pickings. I to be honest, I like the I think what was his name? Bobby Slowick. I think the old offensive coordinator for the Texans. I think he was a guy that I had my eye on. I actually would have liked to consider Byron Leftwich.
Okay.
Who was the offensive coordinator when Brady was there. For the Buccaneers. So,
yeah, he was an ex quarterback.
Yeah, ex quarterback, and I would have liked to see him get a shot. So it was a couple other guys that I wouldn't have mind, taking a look at, but it is what it is. I understand the vision of Chip Kelly because he is a guy that could make an impact if things go the way they're supposed to. We can suddenly have a coach that can get the most out of not so good talent. So we'll see.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Chip Kelly, I hope you're watching, and if you are, listen up, my friend, because we need this. Raider Nation needs this.
We do.
What are your thoughts, Raider Nation? Let us know. Chip Kelly offense, good, bad, otherwise. Leave a comment. Give us your opinion. Now we're going to go to our final segment, which is the latest segment we created, which is Football 101. In this segment, we're going to talk about, the stuff that us couch coaches, us, medium range football fans want to learn more about. And obviously we have Chris, the football mind, that's going to help us out with this. This week's topic is the draft. We have the draft coming up in, I believe it's 3 weeks. It's going to be in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Is it going to be at the stadium, or is it just going to be like?
No, I don't think it'll be at the stadium. I'm sure they'll have some little area for them.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about that draft and the different points I want to dive into are the different rounds, the picks, the order, and thoughts of our first pick. So, could you give us a general understanding of what the draft is, Chris?
Yeah. So basically, for those that don't know, the draft is, where, college prospects that are eligible to be picked by, NFL teams. So, just kind of the way it is. It's typically like it's usually 3 days. So the first day, it's just the first round. And then the second day, I believe it's round just 2 and 3. And then the third day, it's 4 through 7. So, that's generally how they have it. They usually have it in April, usually late April. So that's kind of what they're doing now. Like I said, 7 rounds. Each round is there's time limits for each round per pick. So in the first round, you'll notice that the timer will show. And it's 10 minutes per pick. So each team has 10 minutes to make their pick for for that particular round. So that and usually like while they're on the clock, that's when teams are calling to make trades and do any last minute deals and things like that. So so that's kind of how that works. In the second round, I believe it's 7 minutes per pick, I want to say. And then 3 through 6, I believe is 5 minutes. In round 7, I believe it's 4 minutes, something like that, or something close. So that's kind of how that works. And then the draft order, is usually determined by the reverse order of how the season ended. So the worst team will get, pick 1. The team that generally, the team that wins the Super Bowl will get pick 32. So that kind of how that works. And of course there's different trades and different scenarios. So therefore there may be years where, teams traded picks in the future and now they're, in a certain spot. So that's kind of how that works.
Okay. Now let me ask you this, because you said that there was a draft eligibility for college players.
Yep.
Do you know how they're eligible, or how they become eligible? Is it based on career stats? Is it based on popularity? What is it based on?
Yeah. So for that, they have to be in college for I think I want to say 2 years, they have to be 3 years removed from high school. So they have to at least play, I think, 3 years in college, or at least be 3 years removed. So typically, after their junior year, they can decide if they want to come back for their senior year, or they can go to the NFL draft. So they have to actually formally declare for the draft. So players that that want to go to the draft, there's a whole process that they got to declare. So that's usually how that works.
Okay. Yeah, and then you also mentioned that excuse me, that there's the order obviously starts from worst record to best record, Super Bowl champs, and that sometimes there's trades throughout multiple years. Like, let's say, this year we trade down, we get a first in like the late teens, we get a second, and then we get a 6th round in the 2026 draft. So when that occurs, that is like set in stone, correct? There's no way that pick is ever going to be taken away from the team that received it, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, because there were a couple of occasions from other teams that I've seen that they'll show on the screen, let's say the 13th pick, and then it shows the team, but then it shows the name of another team right next to it. And that's usually when that occurs, right?
Yeah, if it shows another name next to it, that's like who they got that pick from. Yep, like that's who originally held that pick.
Right. Do we have any of those type of picks coming this year, do you know? Because I thought we had 9 picks, but it turns out that we have 10.
So we got a pick for trading Devontae. So we got a 3rd round pick from the Jets.
But isn't that the one we lost to Seattle for Geno?
If that was the one, I think we had, I believe that may have been the one that we gave.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then honestly, I think there was another pick that, because I know we have a couple, I think 6th round picks or something.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. So we, probably traded. Again, I don't know off the top of my head, but we traded somebody for that. So. Right.
And then there's also I forgot the term, but like we get extra picks for players that we lost, I believe, the previous year to free agency.
Yeah. Yep. So those are called compensatory. Yeah. Yep. So those are compensatory picks. So yeah, those it like if you lose somebody, they'll give you kind of depending on how that player is, they can give you a compensatory pick for that.
And then obviously throughout the draft, there's an X amount of players that are picked. And then there's a bunch of unpicked players that after the draft teams go after, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
And how does that work? Do they have like are they ranked as well, or is it just kind of like somebody that the team scouts had been looking at that didn't fit the mold at the time, but now it's a possibility that they have need for them?
Yeah. So once the draft's over, then it's kind of like a free for all. Once the draft's over, that's when scouts and teams are on the phone, talking to guys that didn't get drafted. And a lot of times when you get to that far in the draft, players almost wanna be a unsigned free agent because then they can pick where they go.
Right.
So I talked to a couple friends that I know that didn't get drafted, some guys that I play ball with, and they had a chance to kind of go through that process. One of my friends, he was drafted in the, I think, 5th round, and then I had a friend that drafted in the 6th round, and then I had a friend that actually was an undrafted free agent, and he probably had the best career out of all of them. So
great. Gotcha. Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I'm not really big into the draft, other than obviously the first day, because that's always the big hype.
Yeah.
As far as this year, being that we needed a quarterback, and Shedeur Sanders was a favorite for our team, and that seems to be out of the picture. Who do you think our first pick is or should be?
In my opinion, I think we just have a whole lot of needs. We're not a team that's 1 or 2 players away, so I think we're going to have to fill, quite a few holes on our team. I'm more and more, I'm at the thought process of trading back, so we can get some other guys. Don't want to go back too far, but maybe if I go back, a few picks, maybe stay around 10 to 12-ish or so. But if I do stay at 6, depending on who's available, I really like Mason Graham. I really like Will Johnson. I like Will Campbell.
And these players, what positions do they play?
So Mason Graham, he's a defensive tackle, so he would be phenomenal, next to Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins.
Right.
Will Johnson, he's a cornerback, so I think he would immediately make an impact opposite of Jacorian Bennett. I think he's a guy that can help take away the other team's number 1 receiver. He reminds me a lot of Patrick Surtain, the star for Denver. And then you got, Will Campbell, he's offensive lineman, a guy that, he's a mauler, he has good feet, he can block, he's somebody that can really help out Geno. So I'd be excited about, any 3 of those guys. But again, it only takes, one of those few teams in the beginning of the draft to do something unexpected. Then you never know who's going to be available for you.
Flips
It
everything
shakes
up.
everything up.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you, how many players that the Raiders draft do you think would make a successful draft, like starters?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So whenever I talk to people about that, I always feel that if you can get 3 starters in the draft, that's a great draft. If you can really get 3 day 1 starters, and we did that last year. So that's why I always say, that Ziegler draft was a strong draft.
Right.
We got to me, a generational tight end. I mean, he still has more to prove. But then we got a center that should be a center for us for the next 10 years, hopefully. So he's an absolute dog. And then with Glaze, I believe Glaze, if not at right tackle, if we need to move him in to guard, either way, I think he showed that he can play at the NFL level as a starting offensive lineman. So, I really feel we got 3 guys. So if we can leave, but I think even this year, though, to really help us get to the next level, I would like to see 4 starters, but if we can, leave out of this draft again with 3 solid starters, I'd be happy.
That's great. Yeah, I hope so too, because last year we definitely it was a really good draft in comparisons to years past.
Yep.
You know, we've hit occasionally with one player here, one player there, but last year, you know, they did do very well in the draft, and that's basically that was it for our team.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything else you would want to add about the draft that the Raider Nation should know?
No, man. I just you know, it's always exciting. It's always exciting. You know, we've just kind of see how we've turned as an organization. The draft used to be a little stressful back in the day with old Al Davis.
Yes.
You know, because Al Davis used to drive us crazy because he would just get the fastest guy available or, you know, the biggest guy. So, so it seems like, you know, we're trying to be a little more strategic in our, you know, the way that we draft. It doesn't always work, but, you know, it's exciting though.
Now, what are you going to be doing for the draft? Do you do anything in particular? Do you have any traditions? Or
I'm not sure, man, what I'm gonna do this year. Last year, I was actually at the draft in Detroit.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
so
right.
that was a fun time, man. I was with MC Raider and my boy Cheeto Linus, man, and my boy Turf. We had a very good time, man. So I know some of those guys are going out to Green Bay. So I know that's gonna be fun for them.
So you're not going this year? You're not going this year?
No, I'm not going this year. You know, I may do something where I go live with the guys. I know 805 probably wants to do something.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. I may just kick it, you know, just hang out and just watch it. I'm not sure yet, but definitely make sure you guys subscribe to me, hit the notification bell in case I do go live. Then you guys can talk ball with us, you know, and talk the draft while it's happening.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm hoping. I just got the idea today of actually doing like a first round draft party.
Yeah.
You know, kind of go hang out somewhere with the Raider Nation and you know, just see what we get. I'm going to reach out to a couple of our friends from West Coast Pirates, from Raiders Against the World, from my Booster Club TNBC, and see if we get together and invite the Raider Nation and just hang out. You know, because usually I just end up sitting here by myself watching it on TV, and you know, it's not as exciting as it is when you're
with people.
Yeah, because now you're not just getting your own point of view of the players you're hoping to get, but now you're hearing other points, and you know, it gets exciting to see who was right.
Right.
To see which player our team's going to pick, and you know, just the camaraderie itself. So hopefully, if something does go down, I'll put it on my social media, and hopefully, Nation, if we do it, hopefully you could join us.
Yeah.
But as far as the draft, for me, I'm excited for it. You know, because obviously, as Chris and myself mentioned earlier, there are a lot of needs. I'm just hoping to see. I have no particular players that I want to see picked. I just want our holes to be filled. I just want, like Chris says, to have some starters come next season to be able to get in and go. You know, because we need that. We need to change the dynamic of our team. We need to change the mentality and ideology of our team and our players to be winners.
Yeah.
Because we know they can do it. Now we need them to know that, you know, because we're supporting them 100%, and we need them to show us that they're reciprocating that support. You know, so, and it starts with started with free agency, but now with the draft with the youngsters.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, all right, Raider Nation, that was all our segments for this week's episode. Chris, let us know what you got going on, brother.
Yeah, man. Like, as you guys know, man, catch me on all social media platforms, man, on Protect the Shield podcast. You know, again, I'm you know, always on, you know, very active in all of them. So, you know, definitely enjoy talking ball. If you guys, you know, like to talk ball and just kind of, you know, talk different things, give me your ideas of the draft, and, you know, definitely enjoy hearing all that. You know, definitely check me out on YouTube, man. Again, you know, I'm with my brothers at Raider War Room every Tuesday night and every Sunday night. So just make sure you guys, you know, subscribe to me, hit the bell notification so you know whenever, you know, I do go live. Just like yesterday, me and Dub went live just because of the breaking news with Geno Smith, man. So there'll be times that, you know, we'll just have random conversations, and one thing about me, I love to interact with the chat, you know. So, you know, I like, you know, when the chat is asking questions and giving their thoughts and stuff like that, man. So just make sure you tap in with me, man. I'm just a fan like everyone else. Just I love ball. I work hard to put out content, and I always say, man, support the young content creators, man.
Yes, yeah, definitely like, subscribe, and follow Chris, Protect the Shield podcast on YouTube. All the information is right down here. Please, right after this program, go and sign up, please. You will not regret it. He has fire content. He has great information. The War Room is amazing. They have a really good setup there. 805, Severe,
the king.
Severe. They do it. They do it. Trust me. I always watch them. I don't always get to watch the whole show because I tend to get in a little bit late, but I always watch the recorded version as well. And they have a lot of great information on the Raiders, but also the NFL in general.
Yep.
So like, subscribe, Protect the Shield podcast on YouTube.
Yep.
Raider Nation, as far as myself, this weekend, TNBC is having their Texas Takeover event. I did a special for the Raider Nation roll call. Please check it out. It's in on YouTube. I also did a fire interview with 805 Raider. Check that interview out.
That was fire. I absolutely loved that episode.
Yeah,
loved it.
Definitely. You'll see 1/3 of the Raider War Room talking Raider football, Raider fandom, and just him being or showing us how he became a Raider fan. You don't want to miss that. I have a couple of other interviewees lined up. I have some singers. I have some content creators. Obviously, Severe. I haven't forgot about you, my brother. I got you lined up. We will set it up soon. I know we're close to each other, so maybe we can do it. We can do it in person. I have some super fans also coming up. If you are any part of the Raider Nation, let me know. Reach out to me. Reach out to Chris. I would love to interview you for the Raider Nation roll call. I want the Raider Nation to know how big our family is and who is in the Raider Nation. So I got that going, and then I'm still working on Stogie Nation with MC Raider. Scheduling is hectic. We're very busy. He's obviously has his day job, but he's also a successful comedian now. Shout out to MC Raider.
Shout out MC Raider.
So hopefully soon we'll be able to get something out for you. If not, I'm still going to have some cigar lounge reviews that I'm going to go visit. I got a couple lined up. I need to set the scheduling properly. But yeah, so we got Weekly Wire every week with Chris here. We got the Raider Nation roll call, and hopefully coming soon or coming back, the Stogie Nation. So again, Raider Nation, thank you from both of us for joining us for this episode of the Raider Nation Weekly Wire. Like, subscribe, follow. Let the Raider Nation know of everything that we're doing, both Chris at Protect the Shield and War Room, and here with everything that I'm doing. And don't forget, everything we do is for the nation,
by the nation.
Peace.